Thanks everybody again. So just to echo the, sorry, I really sound like I'm on Vera when I use one of these microphones. I hate it, sorry. So hopefully everybody can hear me. And just to echo the thanks from Avon and Helen initially, thanks for taking part and thanks for being here. So my job for the next few minutes is to really give everybody a very brief overview of what we're trying to achieve in this study, what the point is, and how we're going about doing it, really. So we know that we know when we get older, our muscles change. You can see on the left-hand side here that the size of the muscles change. The muscles get smaller as we get older. It happens in both sexes, men and women. We know that the muscles get weaker as we get older, so people aren't as strong as they were previously. And for some people, this can be meaningful and it can affect the quality of life, their ability to live independently, and there's a bit of a threshold that at some point it really makes a difference to your life, okay? So we know this happens, but we don't really understand too much about why it happens. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, the purpose of this study is to try and understand more about these changes that we know are happening. Why do they happen? So on these two images at the top, you can just see this is inside the cells of the muscles themselves. So we perform a muscle biopsy in the study, and many of you will have had one of these. And the main reason that we're doing that is to look inside the cells themselves and see if there are any identifiable changes there that can help us understand what it is inside the muscles that's changing as we get older. We know that there are some factors that can affect this, things like health conditions, medications that you take, how physically active you are, how good your diet is, and your cognition as well. So there are various factors that can affect your muscle, and that's why we ask about those when we do the home visit. And there are other tests that we do in CARU that can inform our understanding and how all that fits together to affect the cells of the muscles and how they're changing as we age. So there's just a little bit of scientific background really to the study. That's what we want to find out more. That's why everybody's here in this room, and that's why we do what we do. Why are these muscles changing as we get older? What's driving that change? So what have we done so far to give you some indication of results? Some of you will have taken part in this study in 2018 or 2019, so a long time ago now really. It feels like a lot longer than 4 or 5 years with everything that's happened in that intervening period. So our first participant was recruited in November 2018. Now we have more than 200 in the study, which is fantastic. We have a wide range of ages. When we started the study, our focus was on adults aged between 45 and 85. We've broadened that a little bit because we want to look at some younger muscle from adults aged under 45. But the vast majority of our participants were aged between 45 and 85 when we saw them the first time, okay, across both sexes. As an indication of what we've got from everybody, when you add it all together, some pretty impressive numbers, I think. So over 1,600 blood samples, 600 bits of muscle, 200 DEXA scans, and we'll skip over quite a lot of urine samples and quite a number of stool samples very quickly. A number of you will have provided those for us, so thank you again. So lots of biological samples. Antonetta, who's going to speak after me, will talk you through those in a little bit more depth. So this was the first scientific publication that we published from this study, and that was 2022, sorry. And this essentially was an overview of what we were doing in the study, the protocol, if you like, to describe to other scientists and other medical researchers what we're doing here and why we're doing it. And then we provided some information in the paper about who our participants were, what did they look like. And this is essentially what we found and what the Mass Lifecourse participants look like. That most people achieve high scores on cognition. Most participants are pretty active. They do regular physical activity. But most participants don't do regular strength or flexibility exercise. Hold that thought because we'll come back to that in a second. And most participants, especially men, had high self-rated physical function. So their physical performance was pretty good. So, one thing I really wanted to make clear, this will all make sense in a second, hopefully. Maybe it doesn't at the minute, but hopefully it will in a second. So one thing I really wanted to make clear is that sometimes we forget that we're in a nice room in Whitley Bay. I sit in a nice office in the middle of Newcastle. But actually what we're trying to do here is on an international scale. We're trying to do research that is the best in the world, really. And it's easy to forget about that or not even be aware of that because of the isolation. And it's just one small study. You come in and see us a couple of times, and that might be it. But actually, we're trying to do things that are worldwide, have an impact, really. So last year, I was forced to go to Paris in the summer for a couple of days. which, as you can imagine, was horrendous. And the wife and the kids didn't come either, so it was even better. So 3 or 4 days of peace and quiet, absolutely fantastic. And this was, so one of my main interests is about exercise and physical activity and how that affects our muscles. So I went there to speak about some of the data from this study and our physical activity data. So as you can see, a lovely picture of Paris. One of the things that I spend a lot of time explaining to my wife is that I'm a scientist, so I have to think about things a lot. So here's a nice picture of me thinking about things in Paris in the top right-hand corner, as you'll see. But international science is not all glamour. Let's be clear, it's not all fast cars, supermodels, nice red wine. Here's the view out of my hotel window in Paris. So I didn't have a good time all the time, let's just be clear. But what did we find? So in terms of the physical activity, so a number of you will have worn one of these physical activity monitors on your wrist for a week. And we wanted to know, was the amount of physical activity you did related to how much muscle you've got, how strong your muscles are, and how good your physical performance is. So when you come to carry, you'll do how fast your gait speed is over 4 meters, getting up and down from a chair, your balance, some tests like that. So is the amount of physical activity you do related to that? And so what we found in the right-hand side, in the red boxes, you can see that most of our participants are pretty active. They do lots of aerobic activity, cardiovascular, walking exercise is the predominant mode of exercise we engage in, but lots of other things as well. But actually, although people are very active in this study, most of the activity is at fairly low to moderate intensity. And then we found that the amount of activity you did wasn't related to how good your muscle function was, interestingly. So it might be that you need to do specific types of physical activity to really benefit your muscles. So going back to the previous slide when we mentioned strength or flexibility exercises, they might be the type of things that you really need to do for a positive impact on your muscles as you get older. And then I also just wanted to mention the stool samples that we had. And one of the reasons is because it's not the most pleasant samples to provide. So I just wanted to actually say that we're using these and we're doing something with them. So Dr. Jonathan Bunn, who many of you will have met, has kind of led on this. So feel free to ask him any stool-related questions in the break, in whatever guise they might be. So the gut microbiome, you might have seen that, it's very sexy in science, so people are getting very excited about this at the minute. So we wanted to collect some stool samples to see, is your gut microbiome, so the bacteria in your gut, is that related to your muscles? Some people are starting to suggest that it might be, but we don't really know. So that's why we introduced it to the study. So another thing just to highlight is that we hosted our own conference on this last year in Newcastle, with speakers from all over the world, some big name speakers as well as the people in the room, and really kind of putting us on the map for this kind of work worldwide again. So what we found at the bottom, you may or may not be able to read it, depending on where you're sitting, is that the variety of the bacteria in your gut, you know, there was quite a lot of variability in it. Interestingly, older men had the most diversity of the bacteria in your gut. Congratulations. So I'm not going to say too much about that. What we found was that there was not really any relation between the bacteria in your gut and your muscle size and function. So maybe we shouldn't be getting quite as excited about the microbiome just yet, perhaps. So feel free to ask Johnny about that in the break for some more details. This is my last slide. I think I'm still on time, am I? Vaguely? Okay, good. So what's next? So we've been going since 2018, and now we're just about to start a new exciting phase, which you'll hear more about from some of the other speakers later. So this picture on the top left-hand corner is an MRI cross-sectional image of the muscles in the thigh. So white bits are fat, dark-coloured bits are muscle, and you've got a bone in the middle. So you can see here, this is a nice, healthy muscle, lots of muscle tissue, not much fat. On the right-hand side, you can see there's a lot more white areas, there's a lot more fat. So we know that as we get older, we get more fat going into the muscle itself. The more fat that we have in the muscle doesn't work as well, essentially. So we've just introduced some MRI measures that I don't think anybody in here will have had, but we're going to start doing those, some MRI of the thigh, so we can look and see, measure fat infiltration in the thigh, some measures of ultrasound, and then some measures that look at how the nerves and the muscles talk to each other to produce strength. And there's going to be some more talk about that later, so I won't steal too much thunder about that. And then the final thing to flag really is that we are almost ready to start the next phase of the study. So as I say, We've been going since 2018, and later this year, we want to start re-inviting participants back for a 5-year follow-up, 5-year-ish, to say. So if you've previously taken part in the study, by the end of this year, we're going to start re-inviting people back in to do more or less the same thing again. So watch your letterbox, basically. That sounded a bit threatening. I didn't mean it threatening like that. But keep an eye out for a letter, perhaps. That will be a bit less intimidating of a message, really. So we are going to. So it's really good for us to understand how the muscles change across the broad age range of participants we have. But scientifically, what you want to know is, why does one individual change over time? So that really for us to be able to start doing that in the next couple of years and understanding that. And really, we're fairly sure there's not many other people in the world that are doing multiple muscle biopsies and following it up and being able to look inside the cells of the muscles themselves. So scientifically, from our point of view, it's really exciting and really cool. So you'll hear more about that in due course. And I think that's it from me.
So my name is Antonetta Granic, and I am a gerontologist, and I'm interested in the biological mechanisms of skeletal muscle aging and sarcopenia. To study these mechanisms properly and to link them to your function and health, you generously donated to us various bits of you. That is going to further our research in muscle aging. So my job is here to tell you a little bit more what happened to your samples, why do we collect them, where they are, where they travel, if they travel, and what have we found out. I'm going to use an example of skeletal muscle. So, and how you do it, like this. Okay. Because of advancement in biotechnology, now scientists are able to look at microscopic level inside the cells to find out how cell structure functions, cell components, various proteins, genes in the cell, and all other exciting molecules. We can try to understand how they change over time, other differences between sexes, other differences between age group, and so on. This really rich biological data you can collect from a bulk tissue, such as, for example, a piece of your muscle, and from there we can isolate a protein that we are interested in. But also we can collect lots of biological data looking at each and every cell that we have from your muscle or any other specimen. For example, from just 3 milliliter of your blood, we can actually isolate 2 to 3 million cells, blood cells. And then these cells can provide lots of information how cell functions, creating lots of data points that we later analyze. So here is an example what we did with your skeletal muscle. This here is actually a microanatomy in action. So we paired with our collaborator at the Mayo Clinic, Rochester, US. So you may never travel to Rochester, but your muscle did. So what they did, they, with the help of mitochondrial lab here at Newcastle, we sliced your muscle in very thin slices and then stained them with various dyes that allow us to look at the cell structure, the cell sizes, muscle cell sizes, components, and so on. This data, this kind of structural data can be linked to functional data, and then we can understand maybe a pinpoint when in time, at which age, certain changes happen. And this is another example what they did. So here they used a special probes that fluoresce under fluorescent light, and they bind to certain structures inside our cells. And this here in green that you see is a very cool protein that has a function to protect your DNA from damage. Unfortunately, as we get older, this protein is lost. And there is a lots of danger to your DNA to get damaged. And our cells then, because DNA is damaged, cannot function properly. We are going to have more exciting data like this, so watch the space. We will be happy to share it with you in the future. Thank you.